Hi everybody, I'm Luke Hector from the Broken Meeple, and this is Mobile Markets Express Review. If you like what you see, please remember to leave a thumbs up on the video and comment. I want to know your thoughts on this game, the original smartphone game, and the video in general. I like to engage with my community as much as possible. Don't forget that if you want to support the channel a little bit further, there's a little Patreon that's always ongoing if you want to help me out to keep it running. So, Mobile Markets, a new game from Cosmodrome / Arcane Wonders / Dice Tower Essentials. There seems to be like multiple different logos on this box, so there's a lot of different people publishing it. And it was quite amusing that at Essen I got to talk to Robert Geisendler, who does Arcane Wonders, and they were sat right next to Cosmodrome, selling the exact same game. Ouch! That's bad placement. But that aside, this game I was kind of a little bit like, kind of meh going into, because I've played Smartphone Inc., but it didn't really wow me. Economic games take a little bit more to impress me. I mean, it took a lot for Pret-a-Porter to impress me, for example. And I don't know, I found Smartphone Inc. just a little bit boring. I thought it went on a bit too long for what it was. It just, I don't know, didn't really win me over, despite the theme being something that I'm into. I mean, smartphones. Where's my other smartphone? It's somewhere around. But, you know, I love smartphones. I've got a massive smartphone, like Galaxy S21 Ultra or something. And yeah, I like devices. So this definitely sung to me in terms of a thematic setting. So what Mobile Markets is effectively a spin-off from the original Smartphone Inc., a card game-based version. The only boards that you've got are your player board and the round boards. More on that a bit later though. But what you're essentially doing is the same premise. If you imagine that in Smartphone Inc. you're looking at the world and you're selling to different continents, zoom into one of those and say we're in Europe and we're selling to like the Berlin market or whatever. We're selling within a city and these are the customers. You're selling direct to the people who are buying your phone, which I prefer as a setting really. Selling to North America or Asia is kind of boring, but selling to selfie-mad customer here and person who's obsessed with NFC and stuff, that's a bit more interesting. But the idea is that you play through a selection of rounds dictated by these boards. You first flip over an event, not particularly interesting, I must admit, it's a bit of a gimmick I think, but whatever, events. It gives you an idea of how many customers are in the round and some little tweak for the game round that affects every player. Then everybody has to select what combination of these two little pads they have. So like in Smartphone Inc., you have these two tiles where you have to think, one's got to go on top of the other and I'm going to cover this symbol here, but then that means that's going to go up, maybe I'll flip it over and do it that way, that combo, and as long as you cover at least one symbol and have at least one on the bottom showing, it's a valid combination. You do this in secret and then everybody reveals, and this kind of dictates how the rest of the round is going to go for you. You then have to price your various phones. So there is a tracker down here on these boards and it tracks everybody's price, which is also turn order. You then get to buy technology cards, which is basically what you think it is. It's like cool, like special abilities and sort of improvements that you have to your board. You then get to select a marketing card, which is kind of the exact same thing. It just applies in a different phase. It's kind of weird that they have two separate phases for these, but fits the theme if nothing else. Then you produce your goods. Again, this is tracked on your board. Then you work out how much profit you're going to make on your phone by actually creating the thing. This is something I quite like compared to the original, because in the original you had the features and it just sort of stayed that way for the whole game. Here though, with these feature cards, you actually create the phone itself. So if I've got a few here, I can think, I could give myself an 8K video footage here, as well as make it a flip phone, yeah, like foldable phone. This is definitely current in the meta, alright? I want 4-lens camera, okay, I want that as well, and I want a bit of 5G, yay! And then you realise your phone costs an absolute bomb to make. So it's up to you how much you want your phone to cost. You work out your net profit, which again, you just track on your board. We're going to get onto this whole thing in a minute. I'm going to gush a bit on this. But then you work out your profit, and then depending on the turn order, everybody sells to the various customers. You've got green, blue, and pink, and they work similarly, it's just they got different requirements. Green ones pay cheap prices for phones, but will pay you a lot more if you have very specific features on them. The blue are just generic, here's a flat price, I just fancy a typical phone, just not rubbish, just not got all the bells and whistles. Whereas the pink want all the bells and whistles, they will pay a good sum of money for them, but they've got to have the various features on there, otherwise they're not going to buy your phone. And of course, everybody is willing to buy a phone that has all the features they like for a lower cost, but then that hurts your profit. Everybody sells all their goods, works out their profit, which is based on the score track, and then you move on to profit to work out, right, okay, I've got this, any other bonuses from cards, then you reset back to the event phase, and keep going for a total of 5 rounds. Now the first thing I want to gush about a little bit on here though is I love how easy this game was to get into. I looked at this rulebook and I thought, oh blimey, this looks quite a lot of pages for this game. I was a little bit concerned, but have no fear. There's a good few pages for an appendix for all the cards in the game. Every single one of them explained, even though most of them are pretty easy enough to get. But then the layout of this rulebook is about as pitch perfect as you can possibly get. All the game components, then all the setup, and then every single phase done in order, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. And yes, there's a lot of pages and a decent amount of text, but there's a lot of pictorial examples in here. I mean, every concept is explained by way of a picture example showing you how things work. It really did not take me a long time to get to grips with this game, and I pretty much never had to check the rulebook apart from a couple of edge cases. It really is solid. This is a benchmark for how, things like Energy Empire and a couple of other games where I've mentioned the rulebook's really good. This is another one that I think you should be taking notes from publishers. Really, really good. On top of that, I love these boards. These boards are brilliant. I mean, they don't exactly look great, these player boards, but they have tracks for your goods produced and your net profits. You don't have to remember all this stuff all the time. Once you've worked out what it is, you just stick your little marker in there and track it. Oh, wait a minute, my phone costs 1, 2, 3, 4 to make, and it's priced at 7, so that's net profit 3, and then you don't have to remember how you calculated it for the rest of the round. Perfect. Not to mention that the phases are all in order on here with little bullet points to remind you how the phase works, so you actually probably won't need to check the rulebook because it's pretty much explained on the tile. Really good for explaining the game to people. Tells you how to prepare for the next round, and the tracks are even on the bottom of these boards to dictate price and turn order. So as soon as somebody goes, right, I'm pricing it at 4, right, there's your 4, I'm doing it at 5, so am I, but I'm first in order, and I'm pricing all the way at 8. There you go, you can see clearly who's first in order, what price everybody is at, and all you need are these boards. I don't think this game is one I'd want to play with 3 or 4 players. Certainly I don't think I'll ever play this with 4 ever again. The problem being that it's nice to have, I've got to think about other players with what they're going to price their phones at because turn order is critical in this game. But here's 2 problems with playing this at 4. Firstly, the amount of customers that you have to put out is ridiculous. Every event card basically stacks with each other in terms of, how many extra customers they bring out. So the more the game goes on, the more customers come out. With 4 players, there's more customers anyway because the game scales. And so you end up having to put them in columns underneath these boards, like so, to basically, showcase, right, there's these many customers. And when you've got about 8 to 10 in a column, I kind of hate you at this point because you need tons of table space in order to do it. It just gets fiddly and annoying. And there's tons of them there, and you basically have to spend a lot of your time scooping them up as somebody comes along and sells to the first 8 customers. So it's like, whoop, here you go, all your cards there. It's just a lot to contend with. But the worst problem with 4 players is this thing. This I have a love-hate relationship with, and I can flip between the two like any day of the week. It's like a very bad marriage because I like this mechanic. I like this thing of, which way do I want to do it? I mean, it's artificial as all get out. I mean, I don't even get, it's not the most thematic thing in the world, but much like little card games like Honshu and Hokkaido, for example, where you got to cover spaces and decide how you're going to organize things, I like the puzzle that comes with it. It's like, I really want to up my price, but then that means I need to have the tile this way round. I want to make this many goods, but I need the technology point. Can I just slide it down there? Ooh, that's good. Yes, I get a lot of technology points, but I suck at marketing. How do I do this? And it really is a cool little puzzle. I wish that maybe you weren't forced to have it a particular way up or down, to have plus and minus for the price, because if I decide I want to make a really cheap phone, I kind of have to have the tiles a certain way up, and it's like I wish they were kind of more intermingled, but that's a minor nitpick. But this can create a ton of analysis paralysis. You want to put 4 players doing this, I guarantee you'll be like, yeah, that's my puzzle, that's good, right, I'm good. Come on, Craig!
Get on with it! Yes, get on with it!
You're there for quite some time trying to wait for somebody to get this done because it's done simultaneous, but you gotta wait for this to be done before you can progress to the rest of the round. And this really really gets grating in 4 players with the AP it creates. 3 players, it's manageable. Like I say, I will play this at 3, but I'd rather play this at 2 and solo, but more on that later. So once you get past this little cool puzzle, most of these phases are really straightforward. Pricing, okay? Set the prices per your things. Done. Technology, right, okay, I have 3 technology points, buy some cards that are worth up to 3 technology points. Ooh, you know, an extra star on my project. Ooh, I can exchange progress tokens for goods. I get 3 more bucks for every technology I have. +1 marketing point if my price is 5 or higher, you know, stuff like that. You know, really straightforward things. Or I can buy more features for the phone. So you know what? All the customers out there this round, they got a bit of a fascination with 8K video footage. Why? I have no idea, because 8K is the biggest gimmick currently on phones right now, even more so than flippy foldy ones. And, you know, but maybe I want 8K. All right, fine, I'll take this card. I now have this feature for a future phone. Then marketing. In reverse turn order, buy a card with marketing points. Everything's basically count up the symbols on your card, on your tile, sorry, and that's how many points you get. Production, how many goods do I get based on a little formula? Track it, done. Sales, set my price and build my phone. Takes a little bit longer than the other phases, but not too bad. But again, 4 players, you gotta wait for a bit of AP on this front. And then profit, you can effectively just sell everything and do it simultaneously, working out how much money you've got. But then you have to do it in turn order in terms of which customers you take, because as soon as somebody goes before you, they're selling for less, but they're also mopping up the customers faster. Trust me, that trying to decide what to price your phone at is such a critical puzzle, it's unreal. Now, as easy as the game is to teach, it's still a little bit much, I think, for new gamers, because I have taught this to a myriad of gamers. I've taught this to heavy gamers, midweight, light, gateway. I've done the whole range, and all the player counts. I find that if you're a heavy gamer, midweight gamer, you'll pick this up like no problem. It'll be dirt simple for you. But light gamers is hit and miss, and I think for gateway gamers it's just too much. It's not so much that the rules are complicated, it's just understanding how to do well at this game really does overwhelm them, and they're just going to not have the best time here. Could you own both? I don't see why you would. They're too similar. Everything, yes, I know there's like, oh, one's doing it with cards and the other one's doing it with more board and stuff, but the whole concept of doing this little puzzle here, pricing, and then getting technologies and features and selling for a profit is exactly the same in both games. It's just a case of the format it takes to do it. Both take about the same amount of time, although to be honest, I think this one can take too long again with 4 players, because the box says 60 minutes. 60 minutes with 2, 60 minutes with 3 maybe, but probably 75 minutes. You're looking at 90 plus with 4 players easily, and that's just too long. The game also, I think, outstays its welcome a little bit with 5 rounds, because by the time I get to the start of the 4th round, I'm like, yeah, this game kind of needs to finish at this point, because it's very rinse-repeat. You go through each round and it plays out pretty much exactly the same as before, it's just a different setup for your tiles and some extra features you've accumulated across the board. Now, the solo mode is actually pretty decent here. In fact, I would rather play this solo than with 3 or 4 players. 2 players, you've got a nice little tug and forth, you know, get in your opponent's head. 2 players just works pretty well. 3's not too bad, but honestly, I don't think I'll ever bring this out with 4 players ever again. I would happily play this solo. The way it works is that you have a, where's these cards? Yes. You have a deck of cards for a guy called Steve Jr., and you select a bunch of cards based on the difficulty rating you choose. So you've got difficulty like, you know, easy, medium, or hard, and very straightforward. You basically do all your planning with your tiles. So, right, done. And then you flip over a card, and it dictates their price, what cards they'll get rid of in the technology and marketing market. They'll take some private customers, they'll say how much they produce, and they get some features, and it mentions like a few other bits on the card, you know, just basically to dictate what they do for the round. But these cards do a very good job of simulating a multiplayer opponent. It's not often that it'll flip a card and just completely screw itself over. There's usually a good thing that will balance out whether it's got a high or a low price, and it kind of does mainly what a multiplayer opponent would do anyway. You're trying to gamble at what price they'll set it at. Now with an opponent, you can kind of guess, like, based on what they're doing, what features they've got. Yeah, I reckon you're going to price low, I reckon you're going to price high, whereas here it's just a complete flip of the deck, you know, a bit of a luck fest in that regard. But it still does a pretty good job, and as I say, I would sacrifice that little bit of player interaction for just getting the game over and done with a lot quicker compared to a 4-player game. So overall, Mobile Markets is a solid enough game. It does feel a little bit rinse-repeat for my liking. That is my only thing. 5 rounds is a little bit too long. It should really just cap at 4, and each round plays out exactly the same. The customers all come out. Yes, they've got different requirements, but they're still the same kind of customer at the end of the day. The puzzle with the tiles is still cool, and I do like that you can buy extra technologies and marketing cards. But yeah, just a little bit of AP issues when you've got 4 players, which puts me off wanting to play it with 4. Even with 3, it's a bit much. 2-player is still good, but I don't get 2-player games to the table often. But this does have a decent solo mode in it. But then I don't tend to go mad for economic games anyway, and certainly a solo economic game is not the first thing I'm going to pull off my shelf. But it looks cool, it's silky smooth, gotta give it credit for that. Very good rule set, duration is good with less players, as I will say, and there is still a good puzzle with the tiles and everything else. So this is very hard for me to rank, because if I was ranking this for me alone, just me, I would probably be ranking this at a 6, but that is mainly for more players, and I do think this game deserves a little bit more credit than that for what's gone into it. So I'm giving this one a 7 out of 10, a lowish 7 out of 10, and I'm giving it a seal of endorsement because I do think that a light economic game is going to appeal to a lot of people. I think if you are a fan of Smartphone Inc., I think you will get a buzz out of this. I don't think you should own both, but I've got a feeling you'll probably prefer this one to Smartphone Inc., although with the new expansion, maybe that might change things. I don't know, I never played the original with the expansion, but this is definitely my preferred version of Smartphone Inc. by a long shot, and the solo mode is pretty good, so it does give an avenue for that for replay value, and it is a very good, quick, back and forth 2-player game. It just loses a few marks for the AP issues and the 4-player sort of fiddliness with everything. It just means that this is not really a multiplayer game per se, it's more of a back and forth solo 2-player game for the most part, but it's got probably one of the best ways to teach the game ever with these boards, a perfect rule book, pretty good looking aesthetics, minus the cards are a little boring in places, but the aesthetics generally are pretty good. So I gotta give credit where credit is due, and I think 7 is fair. 7 with 1 or 2 players, 6 with 3 or 4, that's the way I'm going. So that's it for me on this review. If you like what you see, please remember to leave a thumbs up and comment, what do you think of the Smartphone Inc. range? Are you a big fan of the original? What did the expansion add? Are you keen on this one? Would you own both? Would you only own one? And which one would you prefer? I'm interested to know your thoughts on this because I think there's better Smartphone Inc. experts out there, and I'd be keen to hear your thoughts. And if you want to check out more content on the channel, you can check out the recent Express review I did for 7 Wonders Architects if you want a really like Civ building gateway opportunity to go into 7 Wonders, or if you're really interested in my favorite games, then you can check out my top 100, specifically the 10 through 1, which has aired recently. So take care, and remember as always, it's only a game. Bye for now, everyone.